What's going on? This Theo Gremminger, aka the OG Fantasy, back at it. A lot of times this season, I would get requests to do defensive content. It's not something that I love to do, but I'm always grinding when it comes to my own teams and trying to stream defenses whenever possible. You just kind of hit a level of the amount of writing you can do in a week. But put together an article. Hope you guys enjoy it up on the website. Basically laying out your best options at defense for week 15 and also defenses for you to stash in week 16 and week 17. So fantasy defensive streaming advice, defensive streaming strategy, plus top picks and tips for maximizing your roster. So I hope this is helpful to you, and let's get it going. First of all, congratulations. You're watching this video, so you're in the fantasy playoffs. This is win or go home single elimination fantasy football. This is not like, hey, I'm gonna make the playoffs and let's see what happens. This is no. If you lose this week, you're done. So we really, really want to find every single edge we can. And defensive strategy, that's an edge that I think you can beat your league mates in. A lot of times we'll get kind of stuck in, ranking defenses, and then you start looking at like the counting stats. And of course, there's set it and forget it defenses like Dallas and Baltimore that have been like plug and play. Don't worry about it. I'm not changing them at all. Defenses throughout the season. But for most managers, streaming is the most effective strategy. And that includes the fantasy playoffs. And again, like counting stats, they kind of give you like a bird's eye view of the defenses, or for any player at that matter. But we are in a what have you done for me lately type mode when it comes to offensive players as well as defenses when we get to the fantasy playoffs. Teams suffer injuries. Teams start to fall off. Some teams get to a really fast start and then kind of stagnate. Sometimes teams might lose a quarterback and it makes the whole structure of the team kind of go sideways. So a lot of factors can come in play when we're looking at defenses. We also get into when we stream defenses, we're not always saying, hey, this defense, look at them. They're great at rushing the passer, or look at this defense. They've been so effective against the run. A lot of times when we stream defenses, we just find the bad offenses or the turnover-prone quarterbacks, and we look to exploit those teams and those situations. And much like this, what have you done for me lately mentality, a lot of times that can change overnight. If I told you 2 weeks ago that we were going to be looking to attack the Houston Texans and looking to stream defenses against the Houston Texans, you would have laughed in my face. But now with CJ Stroud out and Davis Mills in and multiple injuries to Houston receivers, yeah, we can go ahead and stream defenses against Houston. It's a cruel game, but we need to be able to adjust on the fly. And there's a lot of bad quarterbacks that we can look to exploit right now. This is also a time where if you look at your roster, definitely check out my waiver wire video right here on Player Profiler as well. I talk about a little bit about roster strategy, but this is a time to roster multiple defenses. Depth matters less and less as the playoffs move along. So rostering a strong week 15 defense, that's a must if you play this week. But rostering a strong option for week 16, and sometimes rostering a third defense can be an edge that can put your team in a position to win, not only now, but down the line. So for this article and for this video, I'm listing defenses that are available in 60% of Yahoo leagues or more. And really, I didn't even go over the 50% threshold. But the idea being, when I get waiver wire advice, I keep a low threshold. I want to look at players that are available in 75% of Yahoo leagues or more. So I'm looking at players that are available that are usually like 25% rostered. But when it comes to defenses, I can go a little bit more loose because most fantasy managers do not roster a second defense. And I know when you get down towards the fantasy playoffs, smart managers start doing it. But for the most part, you're going to be able to pick up a lot of the teams that I'm listing. Let's rule out a couple of obvious defenses here that are like no-brainers. Kansas City, Miami, Cleveland, New Orleans. Stream those defenses this week. They're all strong. Now you get to Dallas and Baltimore. Dallas and Baltimore have been our top 2 scoring defenses for the fantasy season. Both have tricky matchups this week. Baltimore travels to Jacksonville. Not like the scariest matchup, especially with Christian Kirk done for the year, but still a matchup that can give the Ravens trouble. And the Ravens just gave up nearly 300 passing yards to Matt Stafford and the Rams. Then Dallas, who's been like, the most impactful fantasy defense this season, they head to Buffalo. And that's one where it looks like a shootout, and Josh Allen's not the kind of guy that we necessarily want to go up against. So, your risk tolerance. Sometimes with fantasy defenses, you might say, you know what, that's it. And certainly in a game that's high scoring like Dallas and Buffalo, it could lean to more opportunities for sacks, more opportunities for interceptions. But at the end of the day, I'm looking to kind of avoid that matchup whenever possible. So let's get to some Week 15 options. I love the Las Vegas Raiders defense. They go up against the Los Angeles Chargers. This is a Thursday night game. Justin Herbert is out and Easton Stick is in. This is like a cruel fate for Justin Herbert managers, a cruel fate for Keenan Allen managers, to be honest. But you have to take this Los Angeles offense, which was already on like a horrible downward spiral, and now they lose their franchise quarterback in Herbert. So we don't have to be overly complicated here. We want to use the Raiders defense. The Raiders defense has been solid this year. And again, the Chargers have scored 17 points combined their last 3 games. Now they go into Las Vegas, and they face off against the Raiders defense that just held Minnesota to 3 points, and they sacked Minnesota 5 times. Home favorites, it's a low total. The game has a total that's lower than 35 points, and the Raiders are like a 3.5 point home favorite on a Thursday night. Easy team to stream. Got to talk about the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta is available to you in 67% of Yahoo leagues. The Falcons defense has been on a solid run. Over their last 3 games, they've registered 6 sacks. They've had 3 fumble recoveries, and they've had 2 interceptions. They're also one of 3 FC South teams that has a 6-7 record. So every week becomes a must-win game for Atlanta. And now they're going up against the Carolina Panthers. This is, again, an easy team to stream. Carolina cannot score. And they've also allowed the 4th most sacks in the league. This is what we call a smash spot. Atlanta, easy. And again, the Raiders are available to you in 92% of leagues. So Las Vegas and Atlanta, those 2 defenses I like a lot. Another defense I love and is available in 94% of Yahoo leagues is the Tennessee Titans. Tennessee just defeated Miami in an emotional come-from-behind Monday Night Football victory. And the Titans registered 5 sacks on Tua. They have 12 sacks in their last 3 games played. They have also, you have to look at Tennessee as a must-add defense. I can consider adding 2 defenses this week, even if I don't want to use Tennessee. Let's say you like what I was saying more with Las Vegas or Atlanta, and maybe you don't want to use Tennessee this week. Tennessee's, first of all, really good defense this week, but Tennessee plays Houston twice in the next 3 weeks. So they're almost a must-add, because if this Houston offense goes like completely south, you can use Tennessee in championship week, in week 17. So you can use them this week. You can also use them in week 17. They're going up against Davis Mills and the decimated Houston Texans offense. Tennessee is available, again, in 94% of Yahoo leagues. Now, Cincinnati, the Bengals have won 2 straight, and they just held the Colts to 14 points. And one of those scores for Indianapolis was a pick 6 for that Colts defense. So really, Cincinnati shut them down. And over the course of the season, no team has more interceptions than Cincinnati. This week, they face off against a reeling Minnesota Vikings offense. Minnesota has a quarterback decision to make in December. You never want to see that. Josh Dobbs has fallen completely off, and now it's Josh Dobbs or Nick Mullins in at quarterback, and they're going to be without Justin Jefferson. They're also going to be without starting running back Alexander Mattison. So the Vikings have scored 13 points in their last 2 games combined. Cincinnati is a strong option this week against Minnesota. Going down the list, Indianapolis. Indianapolis is available in only 58% of Yahoo leagues. But the Colts defense, they had that pick 6 last week, and they saved the day fantasy-wise with that score because they let up 34 points to Cincinnati. Browning was really, really strong. We saw Chase Brown house it on a screen pass. So, the Colts kind of got lit up. But the Colts have the 3rd most sacks in the NFL, and they now face off against Mitch Trubisky and the reeling Pittsburgh Steelers offense. Pittsburgh has lost back-to-back games to Arizona and New England. This is what we call a get-right spot for the Indianapolis Colts defense. Now, some of you were saying, Theo, all of these defenses are rostered in my league. My league is sharp. I have all these defenses. These are unavailable to me. People know the stuff you're talking about. Well, one defense that for whatever reason fantasy managers have been completely ignoring is the Chicago Bears. Chicago is available in 95% of Yahoo leagues. And this is what I'm talking about with the counting stats and kind of looking at the whole season instead of looking at the season in segments. Since the Chicago Bears traded for Montez Sweat, the defense has really taken a positive turn. And it's been a dramatic turn. Chicago, I think a lot of people, you'll see them ranking them as a mid-tier defense this week. I'm going to be bullish on Chicago, especially if I'm in a deep league and a lot of the defensive options have been squirreled away. Cleveland has the most turnovers in the NFL this season. Chicago again goes into Cleveland, but Cleveland has turned the ball over. And despite the newfound excitement surrounding Joe Flacco, we got to take a step back. Joe Flacco's 38 years old and he's a statue. So he's playing really well, but Chicago can definitely get to him. The Chicago defense has a ton of juice heading into this one. They have back-to-back NFC North wins. And the whole idea of there's no tanking in Chicago. Matt Eberflus needs to save his job. They need to get momentum heading into next season. They have Justin Fields behind center, and they already are going to have the number 1 overall pick. They have Carolina's pick. So for them to kind of play it out, they're still going to end up with a decent pick to go along with the number 1 overall pick. So there's none of that. Any of this whole Chicago cares. They want to win out. There's also a tiny, tiny chance they can make the playoffs in the NFC, which is wild. But the Bears have been on an absolute heater. They've allowed 23 points combined to Minnesota and Detroit over the last 2 games. And then over their last 3 games, the Bears have had 8 sacks, 9 interceptions, and 2 fumble recoveries. That is wild. Now, we went through this week. Again, the defensive options for you to add this week are the Vegas Raiders, the Atlanta Falcons, the Tennessee Titans, the Cincinnati Bengals, the Indianapolis Colts, and the Chicago Bears. None of those defenses is more than a 42% rostered, and a number of these defenses are going to be available to you everywhere. All solid options this week. Now let's talk about week 16. You want to start stashing defenses? Denver Broncos. Denver's available in 65% of Yahoo leagues. They play New England in week 16. That's a smash spot for the Denver defense. The LA Rams are available in 82% of Yahoo leagues. They have a home matchup against Derek Carr and the New Orleans Saints. Carr has been bad. This could be a game that could really get out of hand for New Orleans. There's a chance that the Rams could put up an outsized number. Again, I much prefer Denver, but the Rams are another stash. Cincinnati. We talked about Cincinnati this week. Cincinnati also an option for you in week 16. They go into Pittsburgh to play against Mitch Trubisky. That same Chicago Bears defense. This game is a little scarier. They host the Arizona Cardinals. Arizona has Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray is always a scary player to go up against when you talk about a fantasy defense because of his incredible scrambling ability and his ability to make plays out of nothing. But Arizona is a little banged up, and Arizona is no powerhouse. Chicago can also win that matchup and put pressure on Kyler and the Arizona Cardinals. Then Indianapolis and Atlanta. If you add one this week, they play against one another in week 16. So you have multiple week 16 options. Now get to week 17. Week 17, Indianapolis. They host AOC and the Las Vegas Raiders. That could be a game where you could get a really positive game out of Indianapolis. So Indianapolis, they check every single week. It's tough to get excited about them after giving up 34 to Cincinnati, but they're checking every single box for the fantasy playoffs. Denver, if you add them for week 16, you can use them in week 17. Denver goes up against the Los Angeles Chargers. Chargers are reeling. Tennessee, if you added them for this week, you can use them in week 17. They go up against Houston in week 17. And then those same Chicago Bears go up against Desmond Ridder and the Atlanta Falcons in Chicago. You know that game's going to be a little bit cold, to say the least. And that could be a game like, hey, let's win week 17. Again, a lot of options. Check out the article. I'm going to link that right here in the show description. Check out all of my videos here at Player Profiler. Check out my podcast. Stick with us here at Player Profiler all throughout your fantasy playoffs. We've got you covered. Want to see you win some titles. Want to see you win some cash. And spend a little extra time on those rosters this week. This whole thing's going to be over before you know it.